Real people, real stories, and real challenges that break the status quo. I'm your host, Živile, and welcome to Perception Paradox. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Perception Paradox. And today we're diving into one more inspiring episode. That would be a bit more, I think, about the inner journey and where does the universe take us. And today I am honored to introduce you to Franziska Gonder. We met with Franziska a few years back in Germany during Pirate Summit. They came to one of my first talks. And here we are today. And she's an executive coach, somatic coach. And I don't know, for me, it's when I see you on LinkedIn and the last time in person, you're all about the growth, change, confrontations within our, not identities, I would say, but I don't know, this whole healing journey and awareness. So, Franziska, welcome to Perception Paradox. So great to have you here.
Likewise. I'm just so happy we get to spend time with each other. So let's go.
Me too. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm great. I just had a really inspiring call with a potential client. I had a fantastic workout this morning. I had good food, like all the key ingredients.
Yeah.
You know, my kids woke up happy. Things are good. We recently moved to Portugal, and so I'm looking out onto the ocean right now from my apartment. And yeah,
I'm the ocean girl, so it says a lot for me. When you can see the ocean, it just makes the whole difference.
I know. Yeah. I often feel like ocean is mother. Like I often feel like there's like a sort of like there's a maternal energy that comes with like the ocean, I find. So you feel really like you belong into a place where there's water, if that makes sense.
Oh, for me, it does make sense. I'm a water person. Everything what's about that, nature, water, yeah, it's me.
Yeah.
How comes you moved to Portugal? You were living before in Germany, right?
Right. Yeah. We made the transition about 5 months ago, 6 months ago. I think it was two things. One, a quest to get our children out of the standard education system, and expose them to a more like a school environment that has a little bit more integrity to like the individual person, and like, you know, a child's interest and slowness rather than performance only. Not chasing the grades, but sort of like finding yourself kind of idea, or like unfolding, right? I really love the idea of like unfolding as a human. We're always unfolding. And so we found that here, at least for now. It's a great school for our children. I can really see, especially my eldest, kind of like being way more regulated on a day-to-day basis in the way he sees or perceives learning. He has more positive memories around learning now, not just, you know, this sort of like typical schoolroom setup. And so that's been incredibly powerful. And as a mother first kind of person, it gives me a lot of energy to know that my kids are in an environment where they're seen and where they feel like a sense of like belonging and safety, in many ways. So that was number one. And then the other quest was a quest for like-minded community. And like we're an international couple. My husband is American, I'm German. We have those bilingual, cute children. We've both traveled the world. Like, we always felt a little bit like we don't fit in where we were before, whether it was in the States or in Germany, and given also the work that we're doing. And so, yeah, there's a whole community here that sort of like brings all that out in us. So really exciting.
So what's that exciting work you're doing that always makes you smile and shine, actually? And that's how I remember you. I also met your husband briefly, then I met your sister, and you were like those people like just walking around smiling. And I remember I was like, I want to feel the same way, you know?
Yeah, I love what I do. I'm a somatic leadership coach. So that means I combine, like you said, like the underlying idea of like, you know, leadership as in like, where's my growth gonna go? Where do I need to be in order to be my best self? What do my people need? How do I serve? my people. And then I combine that with somatic work, which is, all about the body. How do we store emotions? How do we store trauma? Or how have we stored trauma, small or big? And how do we belong to ourselves? What's our relationship to ourselves? And all of that goes through the body, right? Like there's like so much
Mm-hmm.
neuroscience even behind like how we're not storing the majority of our memories or our experiences in our head, but we're storing them in our bodies, like mainly in our gut. And so I'm really excited for leaders to come home to themselves, and to find what it is that they need to resolve inside of them in order to show more integrity, more presence, more patience, or give more belonging, give more safety, give more dignity to others. So sort of like serve in a healing way. My company is called Leadership That Heals, right? I think we all know like the leadership that scales, the leadership that grows. We like all of those like very masculine ways of operating. And I think it has gotten us to a place in the world where technological advancements and all of that kind of stuff, like it's all powerful. But I think the earth and, society and many things that are happening in the world, including wars, also showing us that how we've gotten here is not going to get us where we need to go as a society, as a community. And so I'm trying to sort of like bring more healing elements into the leadership practice, so that we can operate from a more human-led, human-centered, humanity obsessed place.
Wow.
So
That's
yeah,
really beautifully said.
thank
And but
you.
it feels like after COVID, everyone started being like, I don't know, some kind of global awakening started happening actually.
Yeah, I hope
And
so.
people, well, it feels like that. Maybe it's in the bubble, but I'm also like always
Yeah.
trying to look outside the bubble. But it feels like even people who haven't heard about any type of healings and ceremonies at least
Mm.
are started being aware. But that's first step, right? To become aware that these things are possible. What was,
Mhm.
how did you become aware of this whole somatic healing journey? Because, yeah, it's not back like a few years back, it was not that publicly available or accessible information. You had to know where to
Yeah.
look for your sources and whom to trust
Yeah.
to be guided through.
Mm. Yeah. I've been on this journey for a long time, about I'd say 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my father passed away in 2013. And my little sister and I, whom you met,
Uh-huh.
we both took care of him in the last moments of his life. And I was like a very like alpha female kind of like person. I was studying in the Netherlands. I was building a company on the side while I was studying. I was like traveling the world all the time. I was like, if, today's the day, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
always go, go, go. And then my father became terminally ill, and there was this almost like that blankness in my body. It was like sort of like it was like empty and sad and dark. And I think for the first time in my life, I started to connect sort of like where that drive in my body was coming from, of just always kind of trying to impress and show, and here's what I got, and don't you see, right? And then when my dad passed away, it just all felt like it was meant nothing. It was like super empty. And I started having panic attacks. I started having anxiety attacks. My nervous system was extremely dysregulated. I was trying to basically continue with the same life that I had before my dad passed away. So I took on a job in London and moved to London like pretty much right away after my dad had passed away, and moved into this like buzzing city. I mean, you know how London is.
Yeah.
And working in like a kind of like, yeah, very, very meaningful job, but also like super busy, and super high performing. And I think my body just started to shut down. I was like chronically tired all the time. I was like crying all the time. I could barely sleep. Um, I would lose a lot of weight, and then when I would gain weight again. Like it was like my body was like completely, yeah, just out of balance. And so I started going to therapy and really didn't, the therapy just didn't cut it. It was nice to recognize some of my emotional patterns. It was nice to recognize that I had a ton of childhood trauma, which I did, which my father's death kind of like, you know, made me aware of. But I still felt how I felt. It was cognitively, I knew something else, but my
Mm-hmm.
body was still stuck in fight or flight,
Mm.
basically. And so I found somatics. I found nervous system healing. I found yoga nidra, or like non-sleep deep rest, you know, how the Indo-Huberman people would
Mm-hmm.
call it.
Yeah.
I found all of those ways to understand my emotions, understand where they're coming from. It's like there was like a whole new language that I was developing within myself. And at the time, I had a company, so I had moved to Chicago during that time. I left the
Mm-hmm.
job in London, uh, became pregnant unexpectedly, much earlier, or I should say, much earlier than expected,
Mm-hmm.
but received with a lot of love. And with all of those things happening and still grieving my father and running my own organization, I noticed that the capacity for ambiguity and uncertainty and heaviness in my life started to increase through those somatic practices, through sort of like coming back into my body, through doing breath work, through just kind of just not taking on more than my body could handle. But not just saying that,
Mm-hmm.
but actually feeling what my capacity was on a day-to-day basis and saying like, today I can do this and this and this, and everything else I need to delegate, or everything else you know, needs to be done by or later, basically. And so I noticed that with my clients, the same patterns, because it's universal. Everything that I went through is like, it's just so damn universal. We all go through rite of passages in our lives that sort of like show us, oh shit, like what has worked before is not working anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I started having conversations with my clients. I had an interim executive service at the time, and all of a sudden, all of my operational commitments started to shift towards more coaching, and helping them to sort of like understand how they were getting in their own way, just like I did.
Mm-hmm.
And so I continued on that track for like several years, got more education around it, got more, just dove really deep, read a gazillion books, went to more somatic leadership, or like got more somatic leadership mentors. And then my leadership coach at the time at some point said, like, Francie, you're really good at this. Do you know you need to do something with it? And I said, no, I can't do that. I'm too young. I was like 29 at the time or something like that. So that was a good moment for me, even to dig deeper into like, kind of like how I was sabotaging myself. Another somatic moment in my life. And so when this pandemic hit, I was like, well, if people don't need nervous system regulation now, then when?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If the people don't need to, or need to get back into their bodies for their own belonging, for their own sense of safety, for their own sense of dignity, right? All of the things that the pandemic kind of took away from us through the isolation, through the fear mongering of the media and all of that kind of stuff, everything that was happening, then when?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I'm going to ditch all my projects, went to my husband and said, I'm going to go full time. And he's like, okay,
Cool.
let's go. And so at the time I had 3 kids already. One was tiny, about 6 months old.
Oh, wow.
And I haven't looked back since. It's been a blissful, challenging, colorful, and truly growth oriented journey.
Oh my God, that is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing this whole different
Yeah.
puzzle pieces that led you where you are right now.
Mm.
I think, and wow, I have so many different questions from different angles, but then immediately, okay, so COVID hit, you said, okay, I'm gonna do that full time. So we
Yeah.
all like say, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna just quit everything and focus on one thing. How did that happen for you? So, did you already have some clients, or you started working more on the framework development and some kind of
Mm,
programs and then started reaching out to people, or you just intuition?
I think it was a mix of everything, to be honest. So because of all the years prior, I had kind of like coached others in a different relationship, right? Because it was through the other company I
Mm-hmm.
had. Um, so I had a sense of there was confidence in my body that I was prepared for it, right? I wasn't perfect at it yet, or like I didn't know whether I could really like offer that service on a sustainable basis, but I knew how to like help others to navigate and to get to breakthroughs, basically. And then on the side, I started already coaching others for free, or like they would allow to pick their own price, basically, just for me to get the reps in. I just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
get reps in. And so when COVID hit, it was almost like more of like a matter of just, are you trusting that timing? And I've always had a good relationship with timing in my life. And so I think because I became more somatically aware of like, when to trust myself and when to like sort of like ask for help and stuff, I think I just leaned into that. And so I wrote the announcement email, and within 6 weeks I had 4 clients.
Wow.
Um, so that was, and I have to say, I think a lot of it was also just the network that my husband and I had together. Um, and at the time, he was sort of like my main copywriter. I got way better at writing since. I invested a lot of time and money into getting better at writing, but at the time, he was sort of like my personal copywriter. And I think his announcement email was also just like baller.
Oh my God, I want to see it now.
Yeah, maybe maybe I'll share it. But yeah, I
That's so
think that
cool.
at the time, and that was sort of like, and then I started working on it, and I still do that. I still work on a sliding scale. My sliding
Yeah.
scale is like now is a little bit higher than it used to be, but like I was basically like, here's what I need, and here's how I want you to respect your personal economy in choosing to work with me. What
Mm-hmm.
feels best, right? I always want people to know that that they give me the go when to get started, that they are ready to make this investment. Like, I'm not here to sell anything. I'm here to
Yeah.
offer something, right? So I think having a relationship like that from the get-go was really helpful,
Mm-hmm.
like, in integrity, basically.
Well, there is this saying, right, that the teacher show up when the student is ready. So it's kind of very
Yes.
much also related to that because I guess when you dive into the healing journey, you really have to be ready and open with your mind in a way. Or
Hmm.
also, is it possible if like someone who does not really, I don't know, closes mind, but still wants to try, would that work?
I don't think it really works. What I do believe in is, in somatics, we call that somatic opening. I do think that we can create somatic openings with and for people
Mm-hmm.
by asking questions that help them to reflect themselves. Um, Whether they end up doing the work, you know, is just a matter of timing, I think. They might not be ready right now. They might remember a certain question that you asked them or whatever it is that led them onto a path, to like explore themselves a little bit further. And then they come back to, you or me or someone else and be like, remember when you asked me that question?
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm ready. Right. So this is why I always say this in my women leadership groups too, like the value of the value of the answer has to rise to the value of the question.
Mm.
Right. So I'll say that again. The value of the answer has to rise to the value of the question. So we can only expect a certain answer from someone if we know how to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what it is that we want to get out of that question. And for me, that has been extremely helpful in making sure that I get really good at asking questions and really seeing that person, really being able to witness someone, like seeing their body language. What is their somatic reality and what is their cognitive reality? Where's the dissonance between the two? And kind of like poking into that right there and being like, right, and then asking the questions.
How did you learn that to ask the right questions and to poke it?
Really uncomfortable moments with myself. Having a coach myself that's been on my side for the last 3.5 years. He's always been the same, and I think he will always be the same.
Oh, really?
I trust him wholeheartedly. I just said to him yesterday how grateful I am that he's in my life. So yeah, he's like I think, and I shared this with him too, I think there is a part of me that healed that paternal wound that I had by receiving him into my life. Like he is a version of a man that he's much older than I am, but I always perceive him as the healed version of my father. If my
Wow.
father would have invested into his own healing a little bit earlier, I think he could have been him. Like they have a lot of similarities. And he came into my life at the right time.
Did you meet him or you just showed up somehow through connections?
Well, those two are always kind of like interconnected, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I started looking for a coach and realized that through the sort of like formal, like sort of like social media and stuff like that, it's too loud. It's almost like too loud to look for the right coach. And so I started just asking people that I really trusted, and my former CrossFit coach actually introduced me to someone else, who then introduced me to my now coach.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
And
it was a journey.
the rest is history. You now have
That
your
is,
coach.
yeah, yeah. He's in my corner. It's, I think, the best investment that I ever made into becoming the coach that I need to be for others is to have a coach myself, and to see him weekly and make sure that I learn how to be received by someone. Because I think the piece that is hardest for in coaching in general is for people to feel like they can be fully received by someone else. We're all so good at giving and giving and giving and giving and giving. And so I think one of the reasons why we burn out and why we have such a hard relationship with ourselves and with our own efforts and our own productivity and performance and all of those things is because we are out of balance with our receiving. We only learn how to give, right? That kind of like the education system very early sort of like starts us on that track. So like if you just give into that, then you become someone that we can all be proud of, right? But it's like, what do I need to receive as a human in terms of belonging and safety and dignity, right? Sort of like a big theme in my work, in order to become someone. There needs to be a balance. And so I want to be received by my coach. So I learn how to receive someone else fully. I think giving and receiving is like a core element of becoming a great coach, knowing when to give and when to receive.
Nuggets of wisdom. But do you think we can be in this full harmony and balance in the big city lives where everything is fast paced? Because myself, I've been like really like sometimes struggling. I spend a lot of time in nature.
Yeah.
And then you go back into this whole startup scene, this whole energy, and then, all right, 1 week it's fine. I learn how to step back. The second week, and then this whole pace, it becomes very like heavy. How do you
It
see that?
does.
Is it the world shifting?
I'm a funny person to ask this because I have
Okay.
like I have a few non-negotiables that people like don't necessarily relate to. I don't travel for work.
Okay. The word travels to you online.
Exactly. Yeah, and locally,
Yeah.
if it allows, right? But when I had my kids, I made the commitment that I want to be a very present mother, and in order for me, because I was still understanding my own capacity through all of the grief and then all of the pregnancies too, right? Which like
Mm-hmm.
throws you in for a spin, right? It's like life and death. But I made the commitment that I don't travel for work for the first 5 to 6 years of every child's life. And so my youngest now is 4. And I haven't, outside of one trip that I did with my sister, I haven't traveled by myself for work over the last, I think, 7 years.
Wow.
And I feel really good about it. Yeah. Yeah. I have my routines. I have a beautiful structure to my day that gives me a lot of like capacity. So, and I can only come from that place and say that it's powerful for me because I lived in that exact opposite for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to travel the world with my backpack. I used to travel for work all the time. And now I'm just really selective about it because I know that sitting in my office or walking on now on the beach with a client is actually what is needed in order to give him or her the best experience possible with me. Because I am in my own somatic center.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at capacity. I'm in my capacity, not at capacity. I'm in my capacity.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to give that to them. So, do I think it's possible to regulate yourself when you're like traveling and doing all of the different things? I do think so. Absolutely. It just might require you to have a little bit more wisdom around when to travel or not, right? For women in particular, like, there are times in the month where
Mm-hmm.
traveling feels more exhausting than other times during the month because of where you are hormonally. Listen to that, right? When I'm already at my wit's end and I haven't slept and I have a newborn at home, like, and do I need to travel right now, or can I delegate that to someone else? Can I basically use, let's say it's a male executive, can I basically use the pregnancy of my wife to be like, hey man, like you're going to be the person that's going to represent our organization when I'm in that newborn phase in my family for the first 6 months, right? Like it's all a matter of choice and possibility. And if we're allowing ourselves to sort of like make radical decisions like that.
Yeah. It's and also prioritization. And
I mean, after all, right? That's what it
after
is. But
all, yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's like where and when are you at your best self? That's basically the question. And what is it that you need? And are you willing to like build self-discipline around it?
I don't know if we can just drop the mic. Literally. I think I recall still that workshop you've done when we met,
Yeah,
and we all had to have notebooks, but somehow that part didn't work out for us. Some missing paper, so we were.
I know.
I just remembered that I was writing it into my notes. I really would like to find out those questions actually, and what did I write there? Because that will be a very interesting reflection. Since
I
what
know.
few years passed already, so many things happened.
Yeah,
So I'll try
yeah,
to find it. I'll get back to
yeah.
you if I do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Will
I
be
would
quite
love to see
funny.
those. I would love to see those notes. I would
Oh
love
my
to
God,
see those
everything
notes.
has changed. Like in my life, I
I
think
know.
everything was just like switched, turned around. That was one of the first
But
workshops
you
that I
knew
went.
where you were going. You knew where you
Yeah, I
were
knew it.
going.
Yeah,
You had that in your eyes. Like I felt that when you were like on that, like giving that. It was like, oh, she knows where she's going. She might not fully know where exactly, but
maybe I
you
did.
had a compass.
I wasn't sure about the right tools or how I'm gonna get there. I just had my kind of North Star where I was heading to, and I
Yeah,
think, but it's a life journey, right? We're always heading
yeah.
towards something, and it changes a bit of the trajectory. How is it for you when you're a somatic coach and a leadership coach, right? Because it's some kind of, all right, there was this journey, you learned the tools, but then how does this whole vision of your I wouldn't like say a career. It's more like
Yeah.
kind of your life looks like.
hmm Mm, I think so. Somewhere on my website, um, I wrote that everything is connected through our shared nervous system, right? And if you look at the world right now, you feel like the world is overheated and dysregulated. And why is the world overheated and dysregulated? Because we are dysregulated and overheated. And there's this beautiful neuron in our brains called the mirror neuron. And the mirror neuron gives us the ability to emulate and basically copy what the other person does in front of us or next to us. And what it does, it creates belonging, and it creates safety, and it creates dignity, right? I'm kind of like repeating the same three words again, because they're so core to my work. And the reason why they're so core to my work is that the nervous system has a much easier time to oscillate between stress and rest and digest in a harmonious way when we are, quote unquote, optimizing for belonging, safety, and dignity. So think about belonging, safety, and dignity as like the Maslow hierarchy of needs for your nervous system. And every human has it. Every human needs it, right? We all need belonging, safety, and dignity in some shape or form. And this is also where most trauma, where most oppression, where most dysregulation, where most war, all of those things, when you boil them down to belonging, safety, and dignity, when they're not present, people are literally dying. When we strip people from their belonging to their loved ones or to their tribe or to their community, when we isolate people, right, which is what happened during COVID, which is why COVID was so extremely hard for so many people. And we've been repeating history for so many gazillion years. And so the reason why I called my organization Leadership That Heals and work with leaders on belonging, safety, and dignity through themselves is because their nervous system, their presence, their choices around choosing belonging, safety, and dignity for the organization literally will become the mirror neuron for their employees, for other leaders that are in their corner and that they're like partnering with or friends with, right? Like it always takes one person or a few people to kind of like change the narrative of how we're seeing things. And so for me, it's not just helping leaders to get out of fight or flight or freeze or, heal their burnout. It's really to like give them a whole new perspective on how we can relate to people, how we can lead, and that with leadership that heals comes also commercial success. So that is sort of like the thesis, quote unquote, that I'm attached to, that is way bigger than myself, that I will not accomplish in this lifetime. But I'm hoping to really just create a really meaningful slice in all of that, and to give that to my children and hope that they will continue in some shape or form too.
Well, I think it's already happening. And as you say, that it's also for this whole yourself and organization and then commercial success, but it feels like it influences the whole environment, including the family, right? If your whole nervous system is like in content and you're regulated, then it transfers immediately around your people. How is
Absolutely.
How is it with the kids? Are you talking to them about this whole emotions and the somatic healings, or how do we? Are we learning about that?
Yeah. I'm going to say one more thing before I make the transition to that piece.
Yeah.
I think all of us have experienced a friend or a colleague or a team lead or a leader in an organization that comes into the meeting room and is sort of like all frantic or all like kind of like, quote unquote dysregulated. And we've also experienced people that come into the room and kind of like bring a sense of presence and sort of like permission to be. And permission to innovate, permission to be creative, right? And when I ask people in my work, like, how does that feel when you just feel into those two different scenarios, right? That most of the people say like the first scenario where the sort of like rushed, frantic CEO walks in, it's like narrow, and I feel constricted and I don't trust that person, right? Which, by the way, is a normal reaction because our peripheral vision narrows down when we're in fight or flight, right? So if we don't trust someone, our body kind of like turns on survival instinct. And when they do the opposite, and when they say, so how does scenario 2 feel? And it feels like, well, it feels like I'm slowing down and I can actually think better. And that is exactly what happens to the brain. When we feel comfortable with others, we slow down, we can actually start to think, the right side of our brain opens up, we start to be creative, right? So all of those things are like actual tangible new ways of operating. And so I'm trying to now making the bridge to my children. I'm trying to basically I'm also human. So, I'm not always perfect, but I'm trying to bring that awareness and those practices to my children too. My middle son was born with very severe eczema, and maybe we can link to the essay that I wrote about it and how we healed it through nervous system healing. Because none of the creams, none of the tests, none of the like different diets and lotions and whatever, all of the things that we tried, nothing worked until I realized that my son has a very dysregulated nervous system. He really struggled with transitions, like waking up in the morning, going into the day, coming back from kindergarten, moving into the home, like tiny transitions that mean nothing to us as adults, but meant the whole world to him. And he had a really tricky birth. He that transition was really hard for him too, kind of from the womb into life. And so I started driving around in the car with him after kindergarten, and we would just breathe together. I would start breathing. I wouldn't tell him, you need to breathe too. I would just start breathing. I would say, right, like 4 or 5 times. And then I would turn on like really calm music, and we would just drive around for 10, 20 minutes. And I noticed how he would scratch his skin less when we would get home. And it's like all of those like small things that started to happen, right? So when we would go on vacation, I would help him and say, why don't you pack your own bag? Why don't we make it like a fun thing to do, right? And so I would bring him onto this journey. And when we would arrive somewhere, I would say, hey, how does this house feel to you? Where do you think you would like to put your favorite stuffed animal? How does it make you feel like home when you put that stuffed animal here? Right? So it's like all of those like small things. And I'm trying to do this on a daily basis. My eldest is sort of like a preteen, right? It's super intense right now, I'll tell you that. And so I do a lot of like work around what our relationship is to each other. He's extremely connected to me. And I think sometimes a little bit too connected because he has a hard time taking space for himself, which makes him really agitated and kind of like nervous and like nervous to leave, right? So in the hallway, sometimes I say, take a step back, and I'll take a step back. And I said, how do you feel right now? If you're not sort of like attached to me. And he's like, and this morning he said to me, I'm noticing that I'm really tired, Mom. And I was like, great. Go back to bed for 10 minutes. I'll pick you up in 10. So he went to bed for 10 minutes. And, brushing his teeth and putting on his shoes got a lot easier after that. So it's like all of those little like things that we can do on a daily basis. I think the biggest change for us as a family really was, and by the way, I also want to say we have rituals as a family. We do like energetic circles over the weekend, and like, what is it that you need to give back to Baba? What did you not like? What did you like? Like, how do you talk about your feelings? We do a lot of that. But the biggest change for me was really to bridge the gap between what my kids were hearing on the outside when they were when they were in their kindergartens and our family. And when my son started school in Germany, I noticed how that gap got huge. It's like almost like he lived 2 different realities. Like here I was able to, at home, I'm allowed to like be creative and capacious, and I can choose, and people ask me about my feelings. And then I go into this school and nobody cares. Right? And I just have to show up and I just have to perform. And when there's a bad grade, it means I'm a bad person. That kind of idea. And so I noticed how our family got a lot more harmonious when that gap started to close when we moved here. And like the school is a lot more values aligned with how we operate at home. And so it's almost like it starts to click for him now. So sort of like, oh, it's not, my parents are not lying, or my parents
Mm-hmm.
are not like, weird, or, the weirdos from the block kind of people. But there's actually people who think the same, like my parents do. And that has been super powerful.
How is changing the environment where you can belong and grow together, basically.
Yeah, 100%.
Small but big,
100%.
big step. Do you also have
Yeah.
some family morning rituals and evening rituals? Like, I don't know, usually like some people have
Mm,
the dinners together, or like how was
yeah.
your day? Some people have ritual like don't talk to each other. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, there are different families, different setups, right? And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
societies are becoming more and more close, so communication becoming an issue
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
global level. And how are you doing that on a daily?
Mm, yeah. We have this shakeout ritual at the end of the day.
Ooh, I
And
like it.
sometimes it depends a little bit of like where the kids are at, if it fits or not. But what we do when we feel like there's still a lot of like just, excitement or agitation or just restlessness from the day, which by the way increases for kids at night, because night, the whole concept of night is very quote unquote dysregulating for children because it's very unknown. So if any parents are listening, like this is why your kids get rallied up at night, and it's like they're basically looking for like sensory activities to feel held, so that uncertainty around night slows down. Um, and so we do this thing where we like lay in bed or we stand in front of the bed and we like shake out the day, and like use our hands and our arms and our legs to like shake it out, and then we hold the day in between our hands, and then everybody sort of like gets to feel how the day felt like. So sometimes the day felt for the kids felt really big, and then they stretch their arms out and it's like, oh, the day felt really big. And I said, what felt big today? And then they start talking. It's like, oh, that kid in kindergarten, he really hurt me today. And I was like, oh, wait, no, what happened? Right. And I was like, okay, like let's shake that out again. Right. And then we release that. And then we rub our hands together and turn that day into a memory. And then we start looking at our day, and everybody gets to state one thing that they really loved about that day, and we hold it in front of our eyes. And then we push it into the universe and say thank you for a good day.
I might use it
Yeah.
myself. It's really
Yeah, I
cool.
do
Yeah, it's
too.
really awesome. I really like the shaking part actually.
Yeah, me too.
It's just, it's like also like jumping into the water. You just like refresh
Yes.
yourself after the day.
Same.
I had this
Same.
conversation with the previous kite surfer athlete, now entrepreneur, who said the best part of my day is, even though I'm not an athlete anymore who is competing, you then move your job, and the first thing I do, I go
Yeah.
and dip into the ocean. It
Yes.
means the day is done, I wash it off,
Yes.
and I can dive into kind of more like Zen
Yeah.
evening and time with family and friends.
Oh, I love that. So that resonates deeply. I'm still getting into that routine here now that the ocean is so close. So that inspires me to like, put more discipline around that.
No, it's the best thing ever. Every time when I get myself by the ocean, it was my dream to live by the sea always. What
Hmm.
one of the reasons why I moved to Copenhagen, because that's where I feel alive. It can be
Yeah.
cold, it can be hot. I need water, and I knew that from early age. And if I would be tired or too cold to go for a dip or a swim, I would be like, "Excuse me, where is that
Hmm.
coming from?" That's
Yeah.
what makes you alive. So you go and you embrace it, no matter what. If it's cold, if it's hot, especially if it's like so close.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We dip into the ocean a lot. It's just not a ritual yet.
Yeah, that maybe don't have to. It doesn't have to be a ritual. It's just an activity you enjoy, and it's part of
Yeah,
the process.
totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Since
Mm.
you've been so much through this whole healing journey, educational journey, sharing that
Hmm.
with the world and pretty very openly,
Hmm.
um, do you think that do we fully heal from our traumas, or it becomes part of our identities
I
when
think
we
it
accept?
does. think they will always be part of you in some ways. There are things that we can really shed, things that we can really integrate. There's a somatic practice where you slow down a traumatic event in your life, like you kind of close your eyes and you lean back and you kind of like let that film, run in front of your inner eye, and then you slow down how it happened. Because traumatic events oftentimes happen really fast, or at least it happens really fast for the body, and which is why it creates a rupture in your system. Um, and so, and then we get oftentimes when we slow things down, we get the chance to sort of like look at it again and being like, how would have loved to react in that moment? How would have loved to, what would I have loved to say, right? Like we can sort of like rewrite our own story by moving back into the past and integrating it with the now. And so, in many ways, I do believe we get to heal and we get to rewrite our own story and we get to grow from that and we get to grow resilience. And above everything else, it makes us who we are today. And I think what comes with that is just the ability to hold. And I often say this to my leadership clients in particular who hold so much, right, in so many areas of their lives. Like, our goal is not to make things like, to make hardship go away. It's for us to increase our ability to hold it gracefully, look at it, and be like, what is it that I get to do from that place? And start to judge life less by the good and bad, but more of the opportunities that I'm given, including things like death, like what I experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know I get to continue to live in the spirit of love also through my father because of what he did not heal, which caused me a lot of childhood trauma, but also because of how he did not take care of himself. And so I now get to learn from him and also be like, it doesn't continue with me. Right? So we're not separated through death. We'll also get to be connected through death because now I get to teach my children that there's a new way of living. And there were so many things that my dad gave to me that are coming alive in my work now that I'm just deeply grateful for. And so in many ways, he's just with me all the time. And I think that's the same thing with healing. It's like let's carry those pieces that made us who we are and carry them with pride and and obsess over it. I'm not ashamed to say I'm obsessed about belonging, safety, and dignity because I had to
Mm-hmm.
work really hard for it in my life. And if that's my life's journey to give more of that to others or to help others to access that, that's okay. Like, sounds like a pretty good life, no, like a life well lived. So it's not a bad thing. Many people say, "Oh, you're just covering up your trauma." It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, if trauma means that I'm coming and rising above the trauma and then helping a lot of other people through that, I don't know, not such a bad thing to me.
I agree. Every experience kind of shapes us, forms us, and you mentioned resiliency. It really makes us
Yeah,
stronger, and just
it does.
it's the question is how you're gonna channel it and where you're gonna direct that whole energy to the good or to the
Beautifully said.
bad, right? Because
Totally.
we have transmitters within ourselves, so we can really
Yeah.
just transform it and do big things, great things. I think for the whole humanity, if we're
I think
open.
the worst thing that happens is actually that we don't allow to look at our trauma or that don't allow to look at our ruptures or fears and worries. That's way worse than living from a place of having looked at it and then finding a path forward from there, whatever it is. I think it's the uncovered stuff, the
Mm-hmm.
unaware actions, the unaware agitations that we then bring to others. I think that's the stuff that actually hurts all of us.
But when someone becomes a bit aware, because especially nowadays we can hear quite a lot of podcast conversations happening
Mm,
about our minds, about our mind-body connection,
hmm.
which is I'm very happy to see because more people at least becoming aware. But
Yeah.
there are a lot of regions still, even in Europe, in the world, where, let's
Yeah.
say, the therapy, some kind of healings are taboo. Something that we
Mm-hmm.
don't talk in the family, in the society, and you're not
Mm-hmm.
gonna visit a therapist. What would be the starting point for someone who wants to heal, but the society pressure is very big and does not allow fully to open up for that healing?
May sound counterintuitive to maybe what others or what others say, like you said, you just got to go out there and like go get after it and don't care about
Yeah.
anybody else. I don't think that's how it works, because if someone is already like has some form of like trauma or this wound, and then has to sort of like push against that more by kind of like coming out and being like, I don't care, I'm going to go, that actually dysregulates them more, and
Mm-hmm.
that actually causes more disruption to them. So i'm I'm a big fan of sort of like listening to your body and what is available to you right now. If the best thing feels like to go to therapy on your own in isolation first, then go do that. Um, and then start from a place, and then recognize inside of you when you when you grow the capacity to share that with others. The problem, quote unquote, with therapy sometimes is that therapy doesn't actually equate into action on the outside world. It's like I've gained now all of this awareness around what's happening with me and in my body and why I'm so ruptured. But then the therapist doesn't say, so what are the actions that you want to take from that new place? Right? So awareness is nothing without intelligence. We have to move from awareness to intelligence. We say this in somatics too. We have to move from somatic awareness, I know what's kind of happening with my body, to now operating from that place of intelligence. So after every therapy session, try to feel into yourself and recognize, do I have a new sense of capacity to talk to a friend about it? Do I feel like I can start writing about it, even if it's just for yourself? And allow that journey to unfold. And the more we're trusting ourselves, the more we're trusting our bodies, the more we're trusting our own story, the more we will go out there and talk about it. It's just a matter of time. But don't push someone into sharing when they're not ready. Check in with them. Check in with loved ones. Even if they push you away, keep checking in, right? Something that I had to learn the hard way too, because I was not good at that in the past. And it's something that I'm very happy to have recognized about myself.
It's really good that you did recognize. I've noticed there's some patterns where everyone shares, oh, you have to be vulnerable, open up, but are you ready to do that? Because
Yeah,
sometimes it can just backfire into you and put you into larger hole before
yeah.
you're ready.
More freeze,
More, yeah. Wow.
right?
Yes,
Yeah,
totally. This is beautiful. I love all this awareness and conversation where it's happening and leading.
yeah.
So I have this few more questions.
Okay,
So
go.
one of them would be, what brings you joy? What makes you happy in life?
Mm.
Uh,
Oh, I'm such a simple person. um, Working out, um, good food, slow Sundays with my family and friends. Um, Love makes me really joyful. I'm a big quality time person. It's my love language. And
mm-hmm.
so if I get to hug a person or kiss them on the cheek or hold their hand or I don't know, like listen to them or something, like it's just that makes me happy. I also absolutely love nature and river streams. I'm a big
Mm-hmm.
fan of river streams. I love walking through river streams with my kids. Um, so yeah, I love being a mom.
That's beautiful.
Um, yeah, it's so simple. I love waking up to like when you open the blinders in our apartment right now, you open the blinders and the sun is sort of like there, and I'm just gonna stand there for a few moments to welcome the day. It's like it sounds so cheesy, but it sounds cheesy because I think we all know that it's so good for us.
Mm.
Um, right.
So maybe
So
for all the young mamas who are listening right now, because I
mm,
started noticing that more and more women getting children in the whole circle of around me, and
beautiful.
there are those two concerns usually, like how it's gonna be. Is it gonna be really difficult and challenging because
Yes.
of the sleep? And the second was how is gonna happen? What's gonna happen with my career? Can I really make a change? How is it in your case? Because it's beautiful to have children. It's a journey, but
Hmm.
I think everyone wants to know how do you cope when the things are very difficult.
Yeah, it will be difficult. It's the hardest thing you will ever do. Um, and funny enough, there's something inside of us that's different to like a maybe a career or a job. It's like you don't expect an outcome. You just show up for it, right? And that's like something that I really walk into every day of motherhood in with is like I I don't know how the day is gonna go. Um, I'm gonna try to do and be at my best. And I do a lot of like to like center myself before my kids wake up. And I spend time by myself before they wake up. But I also always have the chance to either say sorry to my kids when the day didn't turn out the way it did, and to actually have the humility to say I was wrong.
Hmm.
That did not go as planned. So I think we take a lot of pressure off of our shoulders too, as mothers in particular, when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable with our kids. Not vulnerable to a degree where, you know, where your kid has to hold your emotions, um, but vulnerable enough to be relatable, um, and to see each other. So I explain a lot to my children how much I love my work, how meaningful it is to me. I teach them about money very early on, and explain to them where money comes from and how that is part of our family's economy, that I get to work and that their dad gets to work. So that's a huge piece. I don't feel shame around working, but I also make sure, and this is one of the reasons why I don't travel for work, that I'm very present in my kid's life. And the way I do that is that I don't that I'm not away for too long. And then I think the other piece too is my husband and I are a 50-50 family. So there's nothing that I do that he doesn't do. I would say there are moments even where my husband does slightly more than I do sometimes, because when I have long work days, then I spend more time with the kids, and then he ends up doing dinner or something like that. Will your career take a hit? Depends on how you look at it. Does it mean you added another human that you're probably walking, or like have in your life for the rest of your life and love unconditionally? Yeah. Is that okay that things as a result take a little bit longer? Yes, that's okay. Right? So I think in the problem is that we don't look at life from a legacy standpoint, and that we look at it from like a career step standpoint. It's like, what is my next career leap? Right? It's always short term. And so it makes us really narrow and kind of like anxious of just sort of like, we need to rush. But what is your legacy? What is it that you want to do over the next 60 years, not over the next 5 years? And so as you widen that horizon for yourself, you can also relax more into, the mini steps that you take on a daily basis while also taking care of your kids. I'm not saying this is easy. This is hard for me too. Um, but I'm grounding myself into that a lot when I feel like things are not going fast enough. It's a practice for sure.
Daily practice, and also where
Always,
you set
everything
your
is.
mind, ground your mind in the right way. Yeah, I think I had this one conversation. I was spending quite a lot of time with my friend's kid, and a friend of mine who has a daughter now. She's gonna be 1 year soon.
Hmm.
She said she was concerned when her baby, she was not crying, and she was like, "Everyone is saying it's so great, my baby is not crying," and I'm like, "It's not good. She has to cry. She has to release the emotions. It's not good." And I do recall when she started crying not that long ago. we were making the cheering competition. Yay, she made it. And that changed so much my perspective that the next time when I was boarding the flight and I had a kid next to me and the kid was crying, just
Yeah.
looked into him, cry baby, cry, don't you
Yeah.
worry. And it changed my understanding so much
So
about
I
this kind
love
of
that.
such a small thing, just a
Oh my
baby
God.
crying. Yeah.
Yeah. I when my kids get hurt and I hug them and I hold them and I always say, not shh, it's okay, stop crying, but like let it out. Let it all out until it doesn't
Yeah.
hurt anymore. Um, and usually what happens is that they stop crying really fast. So interesting. I
Now.
think it's just kind of like being recognized in the pain, right? We all want to be recognized in our own little pains and big
Absolutely.
pains. So,
Absolutely. So, while listening to you and this whole story, I know that we did not cover a lot of pre your change when you were very career driven, traveling a lot, changing, moving countries. I'm very curious to learn how did your definition of success has evolved? Because, or was it the core? And
I think, funny enough, I think the whole idea hasn't changed much. I still believe that I'm here to serve others. And that's sort of like, that was always part of, or like my definition of success. What am I doing every single day to serve others? The way I do it has drastically changed. So I feel more authentic, more aligned. I feel like I found my place. So it's not a frantic search anymore. It's more of like I'm resting in the knowing that this is where I need to be and where I can serve the best.
wow.
So yeah,
Where is
that's
that courage coming from? To,
I should call some of my astrology friends and be like, what's in what is it?
well,
What's in my card? They I don't know. I really believe that we all are born with a soul contract. Like we're all here, everybody's here for a different reason. Um, which by the way, that whole idea around soul contract has really helped me many years ago to like relieve any form of jealousy or like, when I was like, I was there and someone else was there and I was like, oh, and it's like, no, Francie, that's not your soul contract. It's like, it's not even part of your journey. What are you talking about? Right? Um, so, and I just really deeply, there's a part of me that really deeply feels, like literally feels, like it's a felt sensation and experiences and knows that I'm here to bring people home. Like I just believe that. And as much as I walk myself home every day and walk my children home every day, I want to walk other people and leaders home every day so that they can walk their people home every day. And that's just a deep freaking sense of knowing.
so how can those people who would like to trust you and kind of help them find their way home, how can they
Mm.
find you and how can they reach out to you?
I have a website, and I heard
Hmm.
that the website is really helpful. So
Okay.
I hope it serves you too. It's franziskagonder.com. And then I write on Substack. At the moment, less frequently because we just moved. But I just uh, I just wrote down this morning that this is part of the new disciplines that I'm trying to create self-discipline around.
Yeah.
I'm coming back to it, but there are about 80 essays from the last 2 or 3 years.
There are
Um,
some things to catch up.
yeah. So then that is called Leadership That Heals the World. That's the old brand. We're shifting towards leadership that heals. And then I have a podcast with a lot of really beautiful episodes with other people that are embodying leadership that heals. And the podcast is called Leadership That Heals the World. I am on X and on LinkedIn more frequently. I have stopped with Instagram mostly. It just didn't bring me joy. But yeah, I'm trying to be part of the social media game, but bear with me, people. It's not easy.
It's not.
So I love long form writing, and my intention for the next year is to write a book. So I'm more in
Oh,
that
wow.
game. But
Oh, I like it.
yeah,
But I guess the starting point for everyone would be a Substack, and we're gonna put all the links in the description of this episode. And of
thank
course,
you.
for the ones who are listening, go press subscribe to a podcast as well, because
Yeah.
every single subscribe button allows that content to reach more people. So I encourage everyone to do it. And I guess I really like to close the episodes with one thought from the guest that would allow everyone who is listening right now to ponder through the rest of the day and the rest of the evening. Would you have anything to leave up?
One of my favorite reflections around understanding where you're needed next in life is to ask yourself, what is wanted of me now? Kind of like zoom out, zoom into your body, feel into the frustrations that you're experiencing, feel into sort of like what makes you come alive, and then really ask yourself, what is wanted of me now in life, with my people? Where am I needed? Where do I get to serve next?
Thank you, Franziska.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much for joining Perception Paradox
Thank you.
and for sharing your journey and more about how we can heal ourselves and heal others.
Yeah, this was so good. Thank you.
Beautiful. So, and everyone, have a great rest of the day whenever you are. See you next week.